His trial date from the same judge who added 3.5 years to Paul Manafort's prison sentence right at this hour yesterday, giving Trump's former campaign chair a total of 7.5 years behind bars.
Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is live at U.S. District Court in Washington this morning for us. Catherine, good morning.
Well, Sandra, good morning. In the last 15 minutes, Roger Stone has left the district court here in Washington. The judge in this case, Amy Berman Jackson, has set a trial date for November 5th with a pretrial conference marked on the calendar now for September. Stone was asked to sign an order today which lays out the condition of his release. That also has to do with the existing gag order that was not expanded today. Right now, under the gag order, Roger Stone is free to fundraise. He's free to profess his innocence, but he is restricted from discussing the case with any of the evidence. And the reason that matters is the question today is whether Judge Jackson would even jail Stone because there had been violations of the gag order with his coming book and a new explosive introduction to that book that's highly critical of the Mueller probe. But the judge today decided to put that to one side and said she wanted to move forward now in a more productive manner. So a trial date for Roger Stone, and for the time being, he is not going to jail pending trial. Sandra.
What are we learning from the release of the Peter Strzok congressional transcript?
All right, so for context, House Republicans have been waiting on the IC, the DOJ, and the FBI to go through these transcripts and then publicly release them. But they've really come up with a workaround. They've gone to the House floor and they've entered these records into the congressional record. On Peter Strzok, we're still going through the transcripts, but we've got confirmation that Peter Strzok told House investigators that the federal statute for gross negligence, that was the most specific and relevant statute in the Clinton email case, had no requirement for intent. And that matters because what we heard consistently from the former FBI director, DOJ, and others during the Clinton email investigation is that they wanted to find intent in order to prosecute. Strzok also gave testimony, limited testimony, on his extramarital affair with FBI lawyer Lisa Page. He did not go into detail, but he admitted to House investigators that this affair would have provided a basis for blackmail. And that matters because Peter Strzok was one of the most senior people within the FBI for counterintelligence. So that is something that we're still going through at this hour, Sandra, and we'll bring you more headlines as we get them.
All right, Catherine Herridge outside U.S. District Court in Washington. Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.
Another alert now. Live look, Senate floor. Lawmakers debating a resolution blocking the president's national emergency declaration. Now, about 10 minutes ago, we got word that the new senator from Utah, Mitt Romney, the latest Republican, to announce that he will vote for the resolution expected to pass. That is against the wishes of the White House. The president says he will veto it. Here's Hogan Gidley from the White House on our program last hour.
The president is literally using powers granted by Congress to enforce laws passed by Congress. This is well within his constitutional duty, and Congress is still unhappy for some reason. Make no mistake, this vote today, if they oppose the president, then they stand in opposition to the American people, to American communities, and to safety and security.
Mike Emanuel, this hour live on the Hill now. Going to be a busy day already there. Mike, let's begin there with you. Good morning.
Bill, good morning to you. No surprise, President Trump is making his case for this border security national emergency on Twitter, writing, prominent legal scholars agree that our actions to address the national emergency at the southern border and to protect the American people are both constitutional and expressly authorized by Congress. If at a later date Congress wants to update the law, I will support those efforts. But today's issue is border security and crime. Don't vote with Pelosi. The dilemma for some Senate Republicans is they worry if they allow this national emergency, then a future Democrat president could declare national emergencies on health care, climate change, or even gun control. And there were efforts to see if a deal could be struck with the White House to avoid the showdown. The Senate Majority Leader says he is standing with President Trump.
Our questions are not especially difficult ones to answer. The president is operating within existing law, and the crisis on our border is all too real. So, I will vote to support the president's decision later today, and I would encourage our colleagues to do the same.
On the other side, presidential candidate and New York Democrat Senator Kirsten Gillibrand going after the president on Twitter, writing, the real national emergency we're facing is a president who would cheat our Constitution and force taxpayers to pay billions for a racist, pointless campaign promise. I'm voting to stop this recklessness, restrict Trump's overreach, and reject the wall again. And a key Senate Democrat made the legal argument for opposing the president.
Are going to be a critical test for our democracy. We are at a turning point, a real watershed for our democracy. The president is seizing power unlawfully and unconstitutionally.
There are now 6 Senate Republicans on the record saying they will oppose the president's national emergency. Of course, the president retains veto power. Bill?
Thank you, Mike. Mike Emanuel watching that from the Hill. Thank you, sir, as we await the final outcome of that, Sandra.
And we know that the president right now is inside the White House. He just welcomed the Prime Minister of Ireland ahead of St. Patrick's Day celebrations. There's going to be a luncheon today on Capitol Hill. Ahead of that, they are meeting in the Oval Office right now. The pool is in there. We'll get this video for you and play it back when it happens. They're taking questions right now. There's talk right now about Brexit, immigration. Nothing right now so far on the national declaration of an emergency to fund the border wall. But we do know that back and forth continues.
I think today is the day we get the bowl of shamrocks, too.
Yeah,
I mean, that is the tradition. The Irish Prime Minister goes to the Oval Office and delivers. So when it gets to us, you'll see it here in a moment. In the meantime.
Joining us now, Senator John Thune of South Dakota. He is the Senate Republican whip. Senator Thune, thank you. It's been a morning around here. There's a lot going on.
Yes.
That Senate vote on the resolution against the president's declaration of a national emergency. We know 6 Republicans voting to rebuke the president's decision there. What do you think?
Well, there are, as you point out, a number, at least a handful of Republicans that intend to vote for the resolution of disapproval, but the point is it won't be anywhere near the number to override the president's veto. The president will veto this. It's got a veto-proof majority, or I should say he doesn't have a veto-proof majority in the House of Representatives. They will be able to sustain his veto, and so I think in the end the president's going to be able to move forward, which is what's the most important issue here, and that is that he has the resources that he needs to make sure that we are defending and securing our border in a way that protects the American people from all the elements that are coming across there, whether that's traffickers, gangs, you look at drugs, all those things are coming across our southern border. It's important that the president be able, through his administration, to protect our border and protect the American people.
Obviously, Senator Thune, everything you just said would show you are in full support of the president's decision to do this.
I think it's important that he have the resources that he needs, Sandra. We have members, and I understand that, who are concerned about how he's accessing those resources, but I think the one thing that everybody agrees on is that this is an emergency, and it's an emergency from a security standpoint. It's an emergency, obviously, from a humanitarian standpoint, and that the president has the authority under the law, which we gave him. Congress gave the administration or the executive branch of our government back in 1976 the authority to do this. I think that's established. There are a lot of our members who are concerned about the precedent it sets going forward, would like to see changes in that law, and I'm certainly open to and supportive of efforts to do that. But for right now, we have a crisis that has to be addressed. The president is taking decisive action in order to address it, and I expect that he'll be able to move forward, because the vote today, irrespective of how it turns out, is not going to be of a sufficient number that it would override a veto that ultimately will come from him.
Let me tell you what the president has said so far today on this. He tweeted out a vote for today's resolution by Republican senators is a vote for Nancy Pelosi, crime, and the open border Democrats. If at a later date Congress wants to update the law, I will support those efforts. But today's issue is border security and crime. Don't vote with Pelosi. He would be referencing those senators like Mitt Romney, who just became the 6th to vote yes on this resolution against Trump's national emergency declaration. And in the statement he made backing up his vote, Mitt Romney, he said, I will vote today for the resolution of disapproval. This is a vote for the Constitution and a vote for the balance of powers that is at its core, Senator Thune. He said that for the executive branch to override a law passed by Congress would make it the ultimate power rather than a balancing power. To that you say what?
I think that right now we've got a crisis at the border. We've got gangs and drugs and traffickers. We all hear it. I hear it in my state of South Dakota. A lot of the methamphetamine problem that we have, which is the cases of, at least in one part of our state, tripled over last year, and it's all coming across the southern border. And I know that we have members who are concerned about separation of powers issues. Those are valid concerns. But right now, the president has the authority under the law, the authority that Congress gave him under the law, to do this. And I don't think there's any question that we have an emergency, and he's trying to react to a crisis in a way that protects the American people and tries to get a very perilous and chaotic situation at our border under better control. And I think in the end he's going to have obviously the authority and the resources to do that, because the vote today is not in any way going to change the ultimate outcome.
So finally, let me ask you about this, Senator Thune. Just looking at the names here, as I mentioned, Senator Romney just became the 6th yes vote to disapprove of that declaration. On the record so far as yeses are Senators Paul, Collins, Murkowski, Tillis, and Lee. Do you expect others?
There could be, sure. I mean, I think there are perhaps a handful of others. We sort of know where most people are at this point, and we won't ultimately know until people have an opportunity to cast their votes this afternoon. And there's still some discussions going on with the White House about statements that the president might make. He's already made, he's tweeted this morning, I think, a statement that makes pretty clear his position. But as we continue to have these conversations and discussions, we'll see how that might affect the vote total. But again, the point here is there won't be anywhere near the number of votes that would be necessary to override the president's veto.
Got it. Senator Thune, thank you. I know it's been a busy morning there on the Hill. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
It has indeed. Thanks, Sandra.
12 minutes past, here we go. The lawsuits are now flying in the wake of the college admissions scandal. Students responding, filing their own first federal class action lawsuit, the latest on Operation Varsity Blues, and one actress that is charged in that case, Sandra.
Plus, newly released testimony appearing to support allegations that the Obama Justice Department urged investigators to back off on
not guilty to 16 felony counts for lying to police. There are cameras in the courtroom agreed to by on behalf of the judge and both sides, so we expect to get video. And when that happens, we'll share it with you. Smollett's legal team is also expected to address reporters. So this is going to be, we're going to have this with us about the next hour or so. So we'll go in and out. We'll let you know the updates when we get them here. First, though, back here in New York, 16 minutes.
There were dozens and dozens of classified emails that were actually put onto an illegal server that was then destroyed, that was likely picked up by foreign intelligence. God knows what countries actually have these classified emails. She should have been held accountable, and she wasn't. And there was an orchestrated effort, a conspiracy, so to speak, to ensure that she was not prosecuted.
Ranking House Intelligence member Devin Nunes reacting to newly released testimony from former FBI attorney Lisa Page, suggesting the Justice Department urged investigators to stand down on charging Hillary Clinton for mishandling classified information. Joining us now is Utah Congressman Chris Stewart, who serves on the Budget and Intelligence Committees. Congressman, nice to see you this morning. Thank you for coming on America's Newsroom. So what does this revelation tell us about what was happening at Obama's Justice Department?
Well, I would say two things. The first is, it's very obvious. I was a military officer. I think you know that. If I had done what the Secretary of State did with the way she handled highly classified information, there's no question in my mind I would have been prosecuted for that. No question that I would have been. And yet she's held to a different standard. And the second point is this. The more we learn about how the Department of Justice and the FBI interacted together and apparently colluded with each other in making a conclusion before the investigation was complete. I defended Director Comey for 5 years. And I think it's hilarious that he's teaching an ethics course and leadership when we know he was one of the most unethical leaders the FBI's had in a couple generations. He lied to the committee, he lied to Congress, he lied to the president, and he lied to the American people. And we're getting more and more information that makes that absolutely clear.
Congressman Devin Nunes was on with us earlier talking about the Mueller report, and he suggested Mueller's dragging his feet on releasing this report. Let's listen.
What in the hell is Mueller doing? I have no idea. But the fact that it wouldn't take long to look at people's emails, cell phone calls, any type of landline calls, bank records. This is all stuff Mueller's had. I mean, this is something that could take a month for the FBI to actually go and do.
Congressman Stewart, what is your expectation here?
Well, look, I've been saying for months I wish that the special prosecutor would finish his work. I mean, you've got people who have had very serious accusations against them, not jaywalking, not stealing bubble gum, accusations of treason. And that cloud has been hanging over their heads for going on 2 years, and we know that many of those accusations are completely unfounded, that they're just simply not true. And I think the special counsel has an obligation to the American people to do this as quickly as possible. With the House Intel, we completed our investigation more than a year ago. The Senate Intelligence Committee has wrapped up their work. Now, I understand that he has a different charge. I understand he has other responsibilities, but I hope he'll do it as quickly as possible. It's the only fair thing to do for these individuals who have been under this cloud for, as I said, going on more than 2 years.
Just want to get this in here. We only have a few seconds left, Congressman, so I apologize. We've got some breaking news to get to.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi, a few minutes ago, was speaking at her news conference. She was asked if her position on impeachment would change. As we've seen in recent days, she's backed off of that. If the Mueller report comes back with damning information, the president, she still said it's not worth our time. She said impeachment has to be ironclad, not a political exercise. Final thoughts, Congressman?
Well, for heaven's sake, she's been calling for the president's impeachment and making accusations against him that are certainly impeachable if they were true for 2 years. But what she's realized is that the things that she has said, and Chairman Schiff and others have said, simply isn't true. That they've accused the president of things that they know there's no evidence of. And I think she's finally realized the American people aren't stupid. They get that, and they think it's unfair to make these accusations and to move forward on impeachment when they know there's no basis for it.
Congressman Chris Stewart, I apologize. I'm going to have to end it there. We've got some breaking news. We want to get to the White House because the president has been meeting with the Prime Minister of Ireland.
And a moment ago, they wrapped up some comments, and we're just waiting for what we call the tape playback to hit our machines here in New York, and voila, here we are.
Right now, it's tearing a country apart. It's actually tearing a lot of countries apart, and it's a shame that it has to be that way, but I think we will stay right in our lane. We're doing fantastically as a country. Our economy is booming. We're the envy of the world. Other economies are not doing well, and we're doing record business. So we're very happy about that, and it's really great to have the Prime Minister of Ireland with us. Well, I think he's got a lot of hand movement. I've never seen so much hand movement. I said, is he crazy, or is that just the way he acts? So I've never seen hand movement. I watched him a little while this morning doing, I assume it was some kind of a news conference. And I've actually never seen anything quite like it. Study it. I'm sure you'll agree.
Who's the bigger threat, Beto O'Rourke or Joe Biden?
I just say whoever it is, I'll take him on. Okay? Him or her. Whoever it is, I'll take him or her on. And I think with the economy doing so well, with all of the things we've done, with the tax cuts, the biggest in the history of our country, tax cuts, with people having a lot more money in their pocket, with their 401ks hitting record numbers. They've never been considered great investors by their wives or by their husbands, whatever it may be, and now they're considered great investments. But the market's hitting almost new highs, and I have all of the records, every single record I have, every single record for the stock market. So I think it's going to be very tough to beat. If you look at African American, if you look at Hispanic or Asian unemployment, we have the best records in history. In the history of unemployment, we have the best records. So I think it's going to be tough for somebody, but you know what? Whoever it is, it makes no difference to me whatsoever. I will. I'll be coming at some point during the year. I missed it last time, and I would have loved to have been there, and it's a special place, and I have a very warm spot for Doonbeg. I will tell you that, and it's just a great place, really great.
Mr. President, yesterday you made a decision about the Boeing planes. How long do you think that they will be grounded?
Oh, I hope it's going to be for a short period of time, and I hope it's, look, they have to find out what it is. The biggest thing is they have to find out what it is. I'm not sure that they know, but I thought we had to do it. We had to take a cautionary route. The grounding of the planes yesterday was a big thing, as you know, and you're involved with Boeing also. The grounding was a big thing, and it's a great company. It's a truly great company, and hopefully they'll figure it out very quickly. It was a big decision. It's also one of our largest exporters. one of our, one of the truly great companies of the world. They have to figure it out fast. They know that. They're under great pressure.
Why did you take that decision so much later than other companies?
Are you still a great supporter of Brexit, given how things have?
Well, I was. It wasn't that I was a supporter. I predicted it was going to happen, and I was right. And people laughed when I predicted it, and they won by about 2 points. And I was standing out on Turnberry, and we had a press conference, and people were screaming. That was the day before, if you remember. I think you were there. And people were screaming, and I said, no, I think it's going to happen. And people were surprised I made the prediction, and because President Obama made the opposite prediction. And I was right. And I will tell you, I'm surprised at how badly it's all gone from the standpoint of a negotiation. But I gave the Prime Minister my ideas on how to negotiate it, and I think you would have been successful. She didn't listen to that, and that's fine. I mean, she's got to do what she's got to do, but I think it could have been negotiated in a different manner, frankly. I hate to see everything being ripped apart right now. I don't think another vote would be possible, because it would be very unfair to the people that won. They'd say, what do you mean you're going to take another vote? So that'll be tough. But I thought it would happen. It did happen, and both sides are very, very, they're cemented in. It's a tough situation. It's a shame. Frankly, it's a shame. There was no reason for that to happen. They could have had the vote, and it should have gone smoothly. Unfortunately, it didn't. Very complicated issue. And actually, the issue on the border of Ireland is one of the most complex points.
Do you think it should be extended to get more time?
Well, I think they're going to probably have to do something, because right now they're in the midst of a very short period of time, the end of the month, and they're not going to be able to do that. So it's going to be. But I'd like to see that whole situation with Brexit work out. I'd like to see. So we're talking to them about trade, and we can do a very big trade deal with the UK. We're also renegotiating our trade deal with the European groups and, literally individual nations, and also with the whole. But it's very sad to see what's happening there. And there's no reason, and I'm sure, Leo, I'm sure you agree with that. Do you have any feeling would you like to express your feelings on Brexit?
Yeah, well.
Maybe I should not let you do it. I'll just get you in trouble.
We have a different opinion, President. I regret that Brexit's happening, and the UK was a really important part of the European Union, but they're going now, and that's their decision. But the most important thing for us in Ireland is that their decision to leave shouldn't cause any problems in Northern Ireland, where people actually voted to stay, and that we shouldn't have a hard border or anything to disrupt the peace process. And also we want to make sure that we still have frictionless trade between Britain and Ireland, because I believe in free trade, and I think it'll be a few years until the United Kingdom sorts itself out. But in the meantime, the European Union is available to talk trade with the US.
And we're talking about trade with the European Union. They've been very, very tough over the years. They were unwilling to negotiate with the Obama administration, and they were unwilling before that, to be honest. I'm not just blaming President Obama. But they're willing to talk to us, and if they don't talk to us, we're going to do something that's going to be pretty severe economically. We're going to tariff a lot of their products coming in, because the European Union treats us very, very unfairly. I have to say that. Very, very. They treat the United States, and they have been for many years, for decades, they've treated us very unfairly. So it'll probably work out. They're negotiating. They want to see if they can get. Otherwise, we're going to do something that's going to be good for the United States.
Mr. President, considering the vote today in the Senate, will you reconsider the national emergency?
No, I don't know what the vote will be. It doesn't matter. I'll probably have to veto. And it's not going to be overturned, and we're going to have our whole thing. It's been, the legal scholars all say it's totally constitutional. It's very important. It's really a border security vote. It's pure and simple. It's a vote for border security. It's a vote for no crime. See, we have a border situation also, but it's slightly different than yours. Ours is not actually complex. We have very, very bad laws that are archaic, that were put in by Democrats, and the Republicans didn't fight hard enough at the time. That was a long time before me, but we have catch and release, and we have chain migration, and we have all sorts of things that are horrible. And the world is laughing at the laws that were passed with respect to us. And we are going to have a very strong border very soon. We're building a lot of wall. There's a lot of wall going up. I don't know if you see it. I don't know if you want to see it. But we're building a lot of wall, and there's a lot of contracts being let out actually tomorrow and over the next week for additional many, many miles of wall. and we're going to have hundreds of miles of wall up fairly soon. And it's going to make a very big difference. But we also have to change the laws because whether it's visa lottery, whether it's chain migration, whether it's catch and release or anything else, they are horrible, horrible laws. I want to just commend our Border Patrol and ICE, what they've been doing. Border Patrol and our military, by the way, has been fantastic. We're building a lot of the barbed wire areas where people were pouring through, they're not going through. They have done a fantastic job. We built some temporary fencing and we built some permanent fencing with the military. They have done a fantastic job. But the Border Patrol, they are capturing, catching, grabbing. They're doing whatever they have to do. Thousands of people, thousands of illegal aliens a month. 75,000 last month. The job they're doing, they're apprehending. You call it whatever you want to use, whatever you like to use, but they're apprehending thousands and thousands of people a month, and we're catching them and we're keeping them. We're not doing a release now. At a certain point, we're going to have to do some release because we don't have the bed space, we don't have the room, and we don't have the funds to build new space because we have ridiculous laws. In other countries, Leo, when you have somebody come in illegally, you say, sorry, you have to leave. In our country, because the laws are so ridiculous, I mean, so stupid, we have to give them a trial. So we send them into the country, then they're supposed to come back, but they never come back. Very rarely do they come back. The most ridiculous set of laws, the Democrats' fault. We want to change them. Unfortunately, we need their votes too. And I think it's going to be a great election issue. Okay, anything else? Say it.
Are your immigration policies cruel?
No, I don't think they're cruel. I think they're the opposite of cruel. They become cruel because they're so ridiculous and it hurts people. It actually does the reverse of what they're supposed to be doing. But no, they're actually meant to be the opposite, and they're hurting people. They're really hurting people, a lot of people. And I think that we have done an incredible job. We're apprehending record numbers of people. But if we had border security, if we had the wall, if we had a proper wall, which we're building now as we speak, and we're getting a lot more funding for it, as you know, in what we're talking about and the vote today, whether it's positive or not, I'm vetoing it unless I don't have to veto. I think that's unlikely. I'll do a veto. It's not going to be overturned. But we have done a great job at the border through apprehension. But we shouldn't have to be put in a position of apprehending 75,000 people a month. We shouldn't be in that position. Thank you all very much. I love being with the Prime Minister of Ireland. Thank you very much.
What are the prospects now of summit with President Xi this month or next month?
We're doing very well with China talks. China talks are doing very well. We'll see what happens. If it's not a deal that's a great deal for us, we're not going to make it. But I would say that we're moving along at a very high level. We're getting what we have to get, and I think we're getting it relatively quickly. So the China talks are moving along. As to whether or not we'll strike a final deal, that I would never want to say, but they're moving along very well.
Mr. President, did you intervene in Jared Kushner's security clearance and Ivanka Trump's?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, President.
Very much what I would do and how I would do it.
All right, thanks, Dr.
She's got her own way of doing it. That's okay. Thank you, everybody.
Everybody's Irish at the White House this weekend, Sandra. St. Patrick's Day coming up on Sunday. The pool's now being let out of the Oval Office. There are a lot of headlines, too.
Wide-ranging.
With regard to the news that we've been watching the last 3 hours. Go ahead.
On the national emergency declaration and the vote that's happening right now, there are now 7 Republicans that says that they will oppose the president's declaration of a national emergency. He said he's probably going to have to veto that after the Senate votes. He says he will not reconsider his decision to declare a national emergency. The world is laughing, he said, at our immigration laws.
Yeah, also talked about Boeing being grounded. I hope they're only grounded for a short period of time. We had to do it, he says, based on some data that they apparently received in the last 24 hours. Hogan Gidley told us this last hour. With the Beto thing, Beto O'Rourke, he is in it now, in it to win it for the Democratic primary. The president said he's got a lot of hand movements. Is he crazy or is that how he acts? might be a preview of what's to come, depending on how that primary goes. Jeff Van Drew, Democrat from New Jersey, member of the Problem Solvers Caucus, Blue Dog Coalition. How you doing, sir? And good morning to you. There's a keen focus on this election already. What do you think about the argument the president's making there about a strong economy, good markets, a lot of money?
Well, there's certainly some truth to that, and the markets have been good, but whether we can rely on that for year after year after year is going to be interesting. I think what's most important when he speaks about a national emergency, look, and let me be straight out, I am a bipartisan individual. I don't necessarily think that everything the president does is wrong automatically or right automatically. I judge each situation individually. I believe in bipartisanship, and I know in this House and in this date and time, it's a very difficult goal to achieve, but I'm going to keep pushing for it. However, this is where I do think we've overreached. I believe that there are reasons for national emergency. There have only been 2 national emergencies that have occurred recently. One of them was during both of them actually were during presidents that shared the same name, the Bushes. One of them was for 9/11, and the other one was for the Iraq situation.
So you're clearly against this one, but you don't disagree that this is a problem on the border.
Oh, it's a real problem. It's absolutely
so
a real
how do you get to the bottom of it? I mean, just yesterday, the White House, the president's talking about the amount of fentanyl that comes in. Well, that affects the people you represent, sir.
Absolutely, and the way that you get to the problem of it, first of all, is to, again, work together, be more bipartisan. I believe that we should have a panel of experts who are non-political completely to come up with a plan that's got the approval of both sides. And most of all, I think we should spend and use the $22 billion that are there for impermeable structure, that are there for beds, that are there for more troops.
Congress has fumbled that football for decades, and I know we're not going to resolve that today. I just want to get at this other topic here, okay, because Beto O'Rourke is in the news. I mean, he broke the announcement earlier today. Here he is in Iowa talking about the Green New Deal, okay? Let's go ahead and play that, and I'll ask you about it.
Some will criticize the Green New Deal for being too bold or being unmanageable. But I tell you what, I haven't seen anything better that addresses this singular crisis that we face, a crisis that could, at its worst, lead to extinction.
I don't know how you feel about his candidacy, but I think generally speaking, whether it's O'Rourke or others running for the primary on the Democratic side, how concerned are you about them tugging your party too far left?
It's a concern, and I think it's important that all those who are in the middle, and that's what I am. You know, I will still maintain that most Americans are in the middle. They're a little bit right of the middle or a little bit left of the middle. The idea that we need to do something about climate change is clear, but the Green New Deal is too much, too radical, too fast, and would change the entire structure of our nation. I am a capitalist. I'm not a socialist. I'm a compassionate capitalist. I believe that we can have a safety net. I believe that we can ensure that people are taken care of, but at the same time, the nation that is based upon our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence is a capitalist nation.
And then final question on that. Yeah, I get it. Does too far left win or lose in 2020 against this economy and this president?
No, we're so early into everything. There could be other candidates that may come forward. Joe Biden hasn't really indicated what he's doing yet. This is going to be what I call one of those deals where the proof is in the pudding and the devil's in the details. We're going to find out. We're a long way off. Who would have ever thought that Donald Trump would be the president of the United States 2 years ago? We don't know what it's going to be yet. We have a lot to go. But I will tell you this. This is an important point. People in the Democratic Party must realize that it's important to have people in the middle and to have the blue dogs as part of the process, because I believe that you can't win without the middle being part of the process. I think it's very important.
It's hard to hear because I know there's a lot of background noise there. Who do you support?
At this point, we're looking at everybody, but we're just waiting for candidates to make their announcements.
Jeff Van Drew, come on back, okay? The Democrat from New Jersey. You sound like a moderate. We'll see how far that goes. Thank you for your time.
Well, it's gone a long way over a lot of years through the state Senate and the Assembly and other offices I've held.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll talk again.
It's great to be with you. Sorry for the background noise. It is not of my doing.
Understood. Thank you.
Take care.
A Full House actress and dozens of others arrested in a college admissions cheating scandal. How these schools are now responding. Laughlin, among dozens accused of paying bribes to get their children admitted to elite universities across the country. Joining us now is Carol Roth, the creator of the Future File legacy planning system and former investment banker. Carol, I know that in your opinion piece on FoxNews.com, you make the case that you got yourself into elite universities, paid for it yourself, worked hard to get there, and that what happened here took away from kids who were trying to do the same.
Absolutely. America is supposed to be the land of opportunity and the land of meritocracy. And regardless of your economic status, you have the ability for yourself to move upwards economically. And that's what happened with me. My father was an electrician. He didn't have a college education. I was the first person to get into school. I got into Wharton based on working hard and having great extracurriculars and, not going to dances when my friends were going to dances. And what this does, it takes spots away from the kids who are working hard, and it sullies the value of the education for people who did work hard, because now everybody has a question mark over their head. Did you get this the right way, or did somebody cheat the system to get this?
It's a great question, and now we know that at least one of the universities involved, USC, is doing something about it. How are they going to dig into the matter and see how deep this really was?
Yeah, USC put out a statement yesterday that anybody who's involved in this, and obviously it's still an alleged scheme, but anybody who's involved this current cycle, if they've been admitted to the school, aren't going to be allowed to come to the school. They're going to look at those who are currently on campus. They're going to go back and look at graduates. And I think that it's not going to be just USC. I think you're going to find a lot of these universities have to do this and have to make an example to show that this is absolutely not acceptable.
As far as obviously some of the high-profile names that have been talked about is Lori Loughlin, whose two daughters were enrolled at USC, and both they were bribes involved to get them admitted to this university. Well, in their case, what do you think should happen to them? Whether they knew or did not know that their parents engaged in this activity to get them into the school, but they're there. They're currently enrolled in the university. What should happen?
Yeah, I hate to be the people's court on this, but I think you need to look at the specific circumstances. I'm not certain if it was this particular case, but I think it might be that at least one of them were admitted to the crew team when they didn't even row. So you saying that you didn't know that you were a part of this, I find that hard to believe. The same thing about SAT scores. I mean, I'm sure you know this, Sandra. When you took the SATs and you got back the scores, you probably did, around as well as you expected, maybe not as well or a little bit better. But you certainly didn't pop out with a 1600 if you happened to be a B or a C student. So the fact that these people would say, I'm not really sure what's going on, I think that's hard, and I think this may end up affecting the kids who are involved.
As far as USC is concerned, they said they're going to conduct a case-by-case review of the current students and graduates that may be connected to the scheme alleged by the government. We know that it was actresses, we know it was CEOs, we know it was wealthy parents that were involved, but some of the coaches that took bribes as well. Some were past coaches, some are current coaches involved. You take this on in your piece, and you write this, and the headline, by the way, is "College Cheating Scandal Should Make Blue-Collar Families Absolutely Furious." In that piece, you write, hopefully an example will be made of the perpetrators in this scandal to help preserve the notion that regardless of your background, America truly does allow you to succeed on your merits. What will happen to those that were deeply engaged in this scandal?
Well, I certainly think they will lose their jobs and potentially have a difficult time finding employment if they were somebody who was on the coaching side. Some of the people who committed fraudulent acts, some of these charitable donations went through the IRS, allegedly. So I think that they could end up seeing some jail time. But at the end of the day, this is about perpetrating the haves and have-nots, divisive rhetoric that is dividing the country, and then giving some concrete examples of people who were wealthy, who had every resource to do things the right way, to send their kids to the right schools, to get the tutors for school for the SATs, still cheating the system. And this is just flies in the face of America being in the meritocracy. So I think that there has to be some strong things that happen to every person who is involved, and obviously something different depending on the case.
Operation Varsity Blues, and amazing to now learn what actually tipped investigators off into all this. That was uncovered by an unrelated securities fraud case is where they got this tip about an alleged $400,000 bribe that was involved. Carol, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you. And the piece is worth the read. Thank you.
Outnumbered comes up next. Quick preview. Melissa and Harris, they are ready to go. How you doing, ladies?
Hey,
good late morning
Good to see you on this Friday Eve. New questions over whether the Obama Justice Department interfered improperly with the FBI's conclusions in the Hillary Clinton email investigation. We'll show you the newly revealed documents and debate it.
And Senator Elizabeth Warren dodging a question about whether President Bill Clinton should have resigned over the Lewinsky scandal. And she's not the only 2020 Democratic White House hopeful being hounded by Me Too issues, whether it will hurt them with female voters.
Let me get us started. Why don't we call it the Clinton scandal? Why do we call it the Lewinsky scandal? Anyway, hashtag in the middle is our single guy. We'll tell you who he is. Top of the hour.
Maybe because there are too many Clinton scandals.
Ooh, hey, you better tune in.
You guys have it out. We'll see you in 12 minutes. Thank you, ladies. Some breaking news. Chicago. Jussie Smollett now pleading not guilty. 16 felony counts against him a moment ago inside of that Chicago courtroom. Details on what we have learned and legal analysis of why a camera is allowed. Coming up next, right here.
I'd like to take them. Let me read it, or you can waive reading. They'll need a plea of guilty or not guilty.
Your Honor, we waive formal reading of the indictment, and Mr. Smollett enters a plea of not guilty.
Thank you.
It was from Chicago, the actor Jussie Smollett before the judge, not guilty, court moments ago. 16-count indictment for lying to police. Investigators say that he staged the attack against himself. Heather Hansen, trial attorney with me here in New York, and good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill.
I think it was surprising that the cameras are allowed. Both sides thought it was okay. The judge thought it was okay. What's going on in Cook County?
We're seeing that more and more often, and I think the courts are supposed to be public. They're part of our system, Bill, and I think that every court, including the Supreme Court, should have cameras in the courtroom. Here, if no one's objecting, the judge isn't really going to say, no, it can't happen.
Okay, so we're going to see a lot of this then.
Every step of the way. And the judge said today that he's got to be there at every single hearing, but he's wanted to be there. He was there on Tuesday. He didn't have to be. He was there today. He didn't have to be. He likes the spotlight.
Okay. You also make a note that prosecutors are elected in Chicago. Why could that be significant?
Well, any time that things are now being seen, every step of the way, it's going to make people act a little bit differently. I think the defense wants this to be completely transparent. They're concerned that there's been perhaps some overcharging here. You know, we saw one act led to 16 counts. So they want to make sure that the public knows everything that's happening one step of the way to sort of have some control.
What's he up against here?
You know, at most, I think he's probably going to get probation. He's up for, there's 1 to 3 years for every one of those counts. So there could be a long time, but usually they don't give that type of time.
So he has a prior record that goes back about 12 years, correct?
Yeah.
Does that come into play here?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And I think that if he were to say, I'll do some community service, I'll get some help. I mean, this clearly came from a place where perhaps he needs to talk to somebody. So I think that those things could certainly help and add in his favor.
Another note here. You say a former senior Obama official contacted the prosecutor last month. What is important about that?
Well, it's interesting. USA Today reported that today, and they contacted them back when they thought this was a hate crime. I think originally a lot of people jumped on this story before checking the background and really listening to the story. So USA Today reported that one of the Obama officials wanted it to go to the FBI so that it was a better investigation. But the FBI is now investigating that letter that he purportedly sent to himself, so they may still be involved.
And that will be managed in a different courtroom at some point, correct? On a federal charge?
Yeah, that could be major. I mean, the attorneys may have a whole lot of work ahead of them.
Okay, so today, is that minor compared to what he could face?
Yes, yes.
Which could be what?
Well, it depends on what they charge him with, and none of that has happened, so I can't speculate. But today, this hearing, the next hearing is going to be in April. This could move quickly, and it could end up with just probation. A federal crime of lying to the FBI investigators, that could be something bigger.
Interesting. Terrific guest, Heather Hansen. Nice
Thanks
to see you in New York.
Good to see you.
Watch it go forward. You say April 17th.
That's the next date.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Sandra was.
All eyes on Capitol Hill right now as the Senate debates a resolution blocking